Hi, my friends. I want to talk to you today about marijuana and the bird flu. So, as you know, if you've been following any of my videos, that our endocannabinoid system produces marijuana like compounds and they literally regulate everything in our bodies. Well, one of the most important central things that they regulate is really stress and inflammation. And it turns out that we've had an awful lot of publicity recently regarding flu, bird flu, swine flu now. And I just want to comment a little regarding the relationships between our endocannabinoid system, marijuana, and the bird flu, or potentially the swine flu as well. So it turns out that the bird flu, which kills about 63% of the people who have had it, um, does so not a direct result of the virus per se, but rather how our immune system responds to that virus. Essentially, what happens is our bodies produce inflammation as part of our immune defenses. Our endocannabinoid system is what turns down inflammation as part of how our immune system balances itself. It turns out that the people with bird flu are not dying from directly the viral infection, but rather they're dying from an overactive, over-inflammatory immune response, which leads to the death of our respiratory epithelial cells. In other words, our lungs die. There are a lot of pro-inflammatory chemical messengers that are responsible for that, and those chemical messengers are normally kept in balance by our endocannabinoid system. There was a very nice publication that came out recently that demonstrated that in cannabinoid deficient mice, because remember you can make a strain of mice missing cannabinoid receptors known as knockout mice, that in those mice there was in fact a greater level of inflammation and they were not particularly responsive to THC as we would expect. What they also observed, however, was that influenza was actually killing those mice, well, killing epithelial cells, lung epithelial cells in those mice as a result of flu infection. And that THC reduced what they determined to be the inflammatory index, and part of that was it dramatically reduced the cell death of those lung cells. Well, that's exactly what's necessary to counteract the cause of death resulting from the bird flu. So that's one part of the story. Now, what we don't clearly know yet is whether or not the swine flu is killing people also as a result, really, of the immune system's overactivity as opposed to directly from the virus. If, in fact, as with the bird flu, the immune system is over responding, then cannabis would help. If in fact that's not the case, and it's really the virus that's killing um, people with the swine flu, then cannabis would be dangerous. So there's two sides to the story, and that part has yet to be determined. I can tell you from my own experience, um, as well as my friend Steve Cubby's, that eating marijuana or eating extracts of marijuana when you have the flu, at least for us too, was very, very efficient in really dramatically knocking down the symptoms of the flu and shortening the period. It's not just symptoms, because if the symptoms are in part caused by you killing your lung cells, if you kill fewer lung cells, you're reducing symptoms, but you're really, truly reducing the severity of the disease. So I want to emphasize that smoking marijuana will probably be harmful. I've noticed this in the past for myself with respiratory infections, because even though you're administering the biologically active pharmacological ingredients that are in marijuana to the lungs, you're also promoting inflammation by the hot gases and particulate matter. So I would assume at this point that if you came down with the flu, you should not smoke marijuana or anything else for that matter. and that, in fact, if you do eat cannabis compounds, that will be beneficial. So there's a huge difference here between smoking and eating. I've clearly seen that within myself. Steve, who is dependent on smoking in order to live because of his pheochromocytoma, has in the past had terrible flu experiences and was quite shocked at how much better it was when he did not smoke, but rather ate lozenges, cannabis-containing lozenges. So that's my take on the flu. I hope it's of use to you. Be careful if you get the flu. I would strongly advise you to, based on hardcore science, not to smoke cannabis. But on the other hand, if you want to experiment and see if eating it helps, I think there's good reason to believe that that will be the case. Take care.